obviously. I am the Chief Medical Officer of Providence Trinity Hospice, the Medical Director of Providence Trinity Kids Care, the only dedicated pediatric hospice and palliative care program now in the state of California, and the Medical Director of the Doak Center for Palliative Care at Providence Little Company of Mary, Torrance. My newest job, though, is Ira Byock's wingman. And I would tell you that in my field, that is what gives me the street cred. I just got back from Montreal, where Ira and I were at the International Congress for Palliative Care, and the few people I knew there all came up to me and their first question was, "So, you're working with Ira?" But before I introduce Ira, I get to tell a story. My story starts with a young Filipino nurse who was working in a neonatal intensive care unit in Long Beach. Her aunt, unfortunately, was diagnosed with stage 4 lung cancer. She was admitted to Little Company of Mary, and a palliative care consult was ordered. This was about 9 years ago. So not all the consults that I do are memorable, but this one was for several reasons. One is, I distinctly remember, it was the first time that I had a foundation staff member observe what we did in palliative care. And I'm pretty sure Steve Wallace will never forget this case as well. The second is that this woman had a wonderful family. She had a husband and 3 children, ages 10, 14, and 17. And she had a large, loving, extended family that was very concerned about her. So after I first saw her and helped her with her pain and shortness of breath, which is why she was admitted to the hospital in the first place, I asked her, "What are you really worried about?" And she told me, "My kids. I have to live on for my kids. I'm so worried about them. They don't know how bad it is, and I don't know how to tell them." So I said to her, maybe I can help you. So I sat with the 3 children and their father in my office, and I explained to them how cancer was this little ball that was growing in their mother's chest, and it was growing bigger and bigger. And despite everything the doctors tried to do, it was still growing bigger. And that's what was making her having such a hard time breathing and why she was in so much pain. And they asked me, "Is she going to get better?" And I said, "No, she's not." And then they asked me, "Is she going to die?" And I said, "Yes, she is." Now, this is one of the hardest parts of my job, really. The next thing I did was to talk to the extended family. And that family included this young nurse that I started the story with. She was the only medical person in the family, and the family really looked to her to see if what I was saying made sense and if I could be trusted. Tragically, this woman went on to die several weeks later, just as we had tried to prepare the family for. But after her death, 2 things happened that were memorable and I will never forget. The 3 children, after the funeral, still dressed up in their best Sunday clothes, asked if they could come back to the hospital to see me and give me a hug. And the second thing that I did not know about at the time was that young Filipino nurse was so impressed by that situation, she went on to pursue her degree in and become a nurse practitioner and pursue a career in palliative care. Now that young nurse practitioner is a full-fledged member of our team in Torrance. So it wasn't easy for her. We are pretty picky about who we ask to work with us because we have a pretty high-functioning team. So she was selected over many very well-qualified candidates. Her first year of work, she and her husband adopted a baby and had a baby. English is not her first language, so nuanced communication is not easy for her. And she never had any formal training in pain and symptom management. But now, she does almost all the consultations in our transitional care unit. She is called Dr. Salve by the nurses there. The doctors there all have her cell phone number, and they call her first. They only call me if they can't get a hold of Salve. And one doctor even asked me a couple weeks ago, "Are you still doing that palliative care thing?" So we could not be more proud of our nurse practitioner, Salve Bautista. She is an inspiration to our entire team every day. Her determination and perseverance has been remarkable. So let me get to introducing Ira. This is what you've all been waiting for. People have been talking about him all day. So it turns out in our field is young enough so that the pioneers in our field are still alive, and most of them are still working. So Ira Byock is one of those pioneers. His work, his writing, his advocacy have shaped the way we practice palliative care and the way we think about doing the work. His 3 books, Dying Well, The 4 Things That Matter Most, and most recently, The Best Care Possible, have really contributed to all of us being able to reimagine and re-envision how we can not only do healthcare for everyone, but particularly at the end of life. That first book, Dying Well, had a huge influence on a particular young Japanese neonatologist who read that more than 20 years ago. At our meeting in February of the annual assembly of the American Academy of Hospice and Palliative Medicine, which is our big annual meeting, there's almost 3,000 people there. Dr. Byock was named one of the 50 visionaries in our field. That's a list that included Cicely Saunders, Elizabeth Kubler-Ross, and Balfour Mount, who coined the term palliative care. And he received the Lifetime Achievement Award from our organization. Those are pretty much the 2 highest awards we can give anybody. And if I were him, I'd retire now. So you are going to have the rare opportunity to hear the man in person. So ladies and gentlemen, prepare to be moved by Dr. Ira Byock.